It's June 2nd already, and I haven't really given you an update on the Mid-Atlantic garden here in my geothermal greenhouse. And to show you what kind of results you can have if you're using the LDS Prepper Premium Micronutrient Mix and following the Mid-Atlantic gardening method. This is David Gilmore, known as LDS Prepper. To watch over 600 videos on emergency preparedness on items that could save your life, including living off-grid, having grid-down power, growing food as if your life depends on it, purifying water, and much more, go to ldsprepper.com. One of the first things we did this season is I sat down with my wife. We turned to page 262 in the Mid-Atlantic Gardening Course book, and I asked her, what do you want to grow? She gave me the list of items that she wanted me to grow because she processes them, I grow them. I figured out how many plants I needed to produce what she wanted, how much space that would take, figured out how many seeds plus 10%, and then it laid out my garden here because our seasonal garden is in the two center rows here, and then the kind of permanent garden is the potatoes on the north side and the strawberries on the south side. So after we figured out what I needed, I planted the seeds in the seedling flat and then got everything transplanted into the garden once it was ready to transplant. We'll do a quick walk through here. Here I have 3 varieties of yellow potatoes, and these were all planted on April 14th. Matter of fact, almost everything in this garden was planted on April 14th, really transplanted. And then I have some other things that I transplanted later. I actually transplant everything except for carrots in my garden because I get so much more production so much sooner. At any rate, everything in here is about 6 weeks old other than the late transplant. So you can see in 6 weeks, these are probably 2.5, 3 feet tall now. And it's because they're getting all the micronutrients that they need from the LDS Prepper Premium Micronutrient Mix available at ldsprepperstore.com. That one package of 20 ounces will make 60 pounds of weekly feed. So the potatoes are looking great. Then over here in the center north section, I've got some Lincoln peas right here. I do try to staple and label everything as I transplant them. Now what I did here is kind of an experiment. Let me walk around so you can get a little bit better view. As I transplanted all of these, I started them all in the seedling flats as indicated in the growing seedling section of the Mid-Atlantic Gardening Course book. And then over here, I planted these seeds in the soil. About 2 weeks later, you can see quite a difference, a significant difference. There's only 2 weeks difference, but there is a big difference in the growth of those plants. And I did the same thing here with the beans. These beans are Blue Lake beans. Again, stapled label there. People want to give me plants and I say, what's the variety? And they go, I don't know. I say, I can't grow something I don't know because then I can't recommend it to other people and I don't know what seeds to get. So again, this section over here in the beans were planted in the seeds. Not all, the seeds were planted in the soil. Not all the plants came up. That's one reason why I like to transplant, because I'm planting a plant in every hole. And these are now, as you can see, up past 7 feet and above that here on the top of the trellising. So looking forward for those to come up. And then I've got some cantaloupe. I've got some honeydew here on the left and some more honeydew. That one isn't doing quite as well. I noticed that these plants really prefer being planted later in the heat of the summer. At any rate, then I've got some honeydews here, and I've pruned those according to the pruning climbing plants section in the Mid-Atlantic Gardening Course book. And then I have my tomato plants. Again, these are all planted April 14th. I've got several varieties here. I've got the Big Beef over here, and I already have some very nice tomatoes on here. Notice the pruning, trying to keep the leaves up off the soil. And so this leaf right here, what I would do, instead of cutting the entire leaf off, I would just cut it off right here so that this part is not in the soil, but the rest of it allows photosynthesis. And then I also prune all the suckers off. You can see where there was a sucker here, and that has been removed. So everywhere that there is a sucker, that gets removed. Sometimes they get so big it looks like that it is the main leader, but it really isn't. You can see over here there's a sucker right there, and then here's the growing tip. Because I have so many people, hundreds of people a year come into my homestead here and take a look at the geothermal greenhouse and also the mid-ladder gardening, our off-grid solar, and so forth, my plants get damaged. And so what I've learned is just leave one sucker here on the top until the next sucker grows. So I've got one sucker here, here's the growing tip. When this grows further and I have another sucker here, then I'll take that sucker off. Because I've had tomato plants damaged, if I have that extra sucker on there, then the plant can continue to grow. At any rate, these are looking great. If you want to learn how to prune indeterminate tomatoes, check out the Pruning Climbing Plants section in the Mid-Latitude Gardening Course book. Over here I've got some cucumbers. My wife really wanted some baby cucumbers, so I've got these pruned here also. We want to prune just so that we're growing the cucumbers right off the main stem here. And I keep them to a single leader going up the twine. You notice I've got some deficiency here. I noticed that this morning, and so I just gave the plant some potassium. I keep a 5-gallon bucket of potassium, another one of nitrogen, and another one of phosphorus. I've had them for 12 years, and the potassium is still 99% full. Oh, I don't know if you can see those strawberries over there. Those look amazing. Yeah, these I think the 6th or 7th year we've had strawberries in here, and we about once a year or every other year we'll take out all the strawberry plants, break the crowns apart, and then because they'll have like 5 or 6 crowns to each plant, and then replant one crown. So we give the strawberries the same weekly feed. You can see that they need more iron than the other plants. See this leaf here? And so I'll give them some granular iron or some liquid iron and do a foliar spray because they just need more iron. But let's get a little closer look at these strawberries down here. These are amazing. You can't get strawberries that taste this good in the supermarket. We usually are eating strawberries from around April through November here in Zone 5A because we're inside this geothermal greenhouse. I'm in the garden around 7 o'clock every morning, and I come in and look at the plants. I'll turn over leaves, and the other day I found an aphid underneath a leaf, and there's one right there. And so what I just did is I just rubbed it with my finger and took the aphid off. I didn't have to spray anything, but because I'm in here so often, I can check and make sure that a small issue doesn't become a big issue. So not having to spray any insecticides, I was just able to wipe those aphids off. Came in today and it looks really, really good. Maybe just a couple that I missed. Here are some baby cucumbers, some California Wonder peppers, and they were just getting some peppers on here. I'll also grow these so that there's a main leader and then probably about 4 others, and that's how I keep it managed. The lettuce has been growing like absolutely crazy. We've got the leaf lettuce here and then romaine lettuce over there. Again, I feed them the same. Everything in here gets the same amount of food at the same ½ ounce per linear foot, except for the strawberries. I noticed that the strawberries are a little bit more tender with the salt because all minerals are salts. And so I give it a ½ amount of weekly feed. So a ¼ ounce per linear foot. So typically I put a pound of weekly feed in a 30-foot box. Here I put a ½ pound. But the lettuce has been the most sweet lettuce I've ever had, and it just grows like crazy. I just harvested these yesterday. Even though these are romaine lettuce and so forth, I still just pick the outer leaves and just let the plant keep growing. Over here, the only thing I don't transplant are the carrots, and the reason is because they grow really weird, so I don't plant them as a transplant. But what I did do is a little secret here. Notice how these are very evenly spaced out. I have not done any pruning in here at all, but I counted how many seeds I needed, put about that many seeds in a little can, added some sand, mixed it together, and just sprinkled it out in the garden. And because it was mixed with the sand, it was a little bit easier to spread. I wasn't trying to put down one seed at a time because they're teeny, teeny, tiny. And it kind of helps space things out. So I have 2 rows on either side of the watering pipe, and these are about an inch apart. Not exactly, but you can see I've got 2 rows here. People think I'm nuts for transplanting corn, but look at this beautiful corn. It is actually over 6 feet tall right now. June 2nd, and it's over 6 feet tall. I do prune the suckers that are down at the bottom. Those don't really produce any corn, but they do remove nutrients and energy from the plant. And so I just have beautiful stalks here, 100% production from every hole. A lot of people will put 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 seeds of corn in a hole when they're not transplanting, when they're just growing in the dirt. And to me, that's a huge waste because you're using up 2, 3, 4, or 5 years worth of seed. Here, what I do with all my transplants, if I want 50 stalks of corn, I'll plant 55 seeds in the seedling flat. 10% more than what I'm going to actually plant in the garden. And so I'm only using 10%. Here, we're just getting some tassels here. Instead of 500% more. So save a lot of money and save a lot on seeds. I just harvested just a few minutes ago some beautiful cauliflower and just transplanted the broccoli in here. And so I try to keep things filled so I can have a continuous harvest here in the season. They were in pots this size. I don't know what size that is, but these are tomato plants I've bumped up twice. So in the seeding flat once, and then in 2-inch pots, and then these pots here. So I took them out of the 2-inch pots, put them down there, and then added some side dressing of nitrogen to help them with the transfer shock. And then over here we've got some broccoli, beautiful, beautiful broccoli. By the way, my cauliflower last year was huge. The cabbage was up to 20 pounds per head. Big, huge, beautiful broccoli heads also. Nothing's been sprayed in here with insecticides or pesticides. I do come in here, look under the leaves, and make sure that I don't have any issues, and I don't have any issues. And primarily it's because the easiest way to control insect problems is to grow healthy plants. And so that's what I do by feeding and watering and giving them plenty of light and the right temperature. Now at the end of the greenhouse, I'm trying something new. I went on Facebook Marketplace and found somebody selling a swamp cooler, evaporator cooler, and I bought it for $25. And I'm seeing if it will produce enough cool air to keep the greenhouse cool without rolling up the sides. I have my other greenhouse with the fruit trees in it, the lemons, limes, mangoes, avocados, grapefruits, and so forth. And it has roll-up sides, and I'm finding that the roll-up sides are cooler than running a 1,000-watt swamp cooler. So I may take this out and put it back on Craigslist and sell it, and just make roll-up sides here. The actual best greenhouse design I've ever seen is in the Mid-Atlantic Gardening Course book in the greenhouse section, because it has a louvered top that allows the heat to ventilate, and you can still have the sides down if you want to protect it from wind and, you know, a freak snowstorm or whatever. Everything grows great. People are just amazed. I probably have had 100 or 200 people already this year come by. I've helped a couple of people put in their gardens this year here in the neighborhood, and I just tell them this is a normal garden. This is what every garden can look like if it's properly fed and watered and cared for. Understand the 6 laws of plant growth as outlined in the Mid-Atlantic Gardening Course book. Follow those 6 laws and you will have an amazing garden and yield and the most delicious produce you've ever tasted. I do have some tomatoes over here, and these will continue to be in these pots. I'll probably bump them up to gallon pots or 2-gallon pots, and then these will go into the garden a little bit later. I have noticed that they grow significantly slower in pots than when they are in the garden. So let me give you an example. I'll just take this plant here. This is planted the same time in the seeding flat as this tomato plant over here, And then I transplanted this tomato plant. This is a Big Dina, and you can, let me just put this up next to it and move this other plant away. Hopefully you can see the difference. There's that plant, and here's the Big Dina, grown the same day in the same seedling flat. And this is what happens when it gets into the garden. There's the roots can spread out. There's I don't know, something triggers it and says let's get growing, and it's 2 to 3 times bigger than the plant in the pot. So one way I control the growth and the speed of the seedlings is to keep them in the pot or put them in the garden. It would be great if you've purchased the LDS Prepper Premium Micronutrient Mix from me at ldsprepperstore.com and used it in your garden. Just comment down below, let people know how that's worked out for you. If you have any questions on how to use it or how to grow food as if your life depends on it, please check out the Mid-Atlantic Gardening Course book or view my other over 600 videos on how to be prepared and how to grow food as if your life depends on it. This is David Gilmore, known as LDS Prepper, reminding you, if you are prepared, you're going to grow a lot of really nutrient-dense, healthy, delicious food.